I was dubious when the Transformers TCG was announced. I've always loved Transformers, having an obscene amount of toys from all eras, and I have a deep love of card games. But the Transformers TCG was being developed and published by Hasbro's subsidiary Wizards of the Coast, who are well known for not being able to run a jock raffle if it doesn't have Magic the Gathering or Dungeons & Dragons slapped on it. This isn't to say that many of the games they published aren't good, quite the contrary, many are. They just are very poorly handled and subsequently die. Recently I had the opportunity to pick up the Transformers TCG on the cheap, and since friends of mine have been asking for a Transformers TCG review from me for quite some time now, I picked it up, tried it out, and this is a review of it. The Transformers TCG is a two-player TCG, published by Wizards of the Coast. It sees you take on a team of Transformers and try to kill the opposing player's team of Transformers. The official term is knock out, but if you're even vaguely familiar with Transformers from 1986 till now, it's kill. To do this, you equip your Transformers and attack your opponent's Transformers, until only one side remains standing. Or in other words, and please excuse my cringe, one shall stand and one shall fall. The Transformers TCG utilizes art from a failed mobile game and the IDW comics. It looks fine. It's not charming or eye-catching, but is functional. The template is dark, using muted colors, blacks and greys. There are functional reasons for this, as everything that increases stats or is stats is very bright, but functional seems to encapsulate the entire vibe it gives off. It has no charm to it. It's just the way it is, it doesn't wow or capture attention, nor is it detrimental. The game also utilizes two gimmicks. Cards vary in size, and the Transformers are dual-faced cards, though later sets have introduced a third gimmick, folding three-faced cards. There are problems with two of these gimmicks. Finding sleeves and deck boxes for the larger Transformer cards is a pain, as they are not normally stocked product. It means they can get damaged quite easily. Secondly, three-faced folding cards damage themselves over time via wear and tear. Their intended use puts a lot of strain on them. You can't actually use them as intended for maximum life, instead keeping them flat and using a counter to show which form they are in, defeating the very point of the card. The final point of note is that the foil utilized for these cards is very uninspiring, with no wow factor. It's not very shiny, not patterned, just a sheen, actually worse than Magic the Gathering. It feels very low effort, and considering that foil does make cards curve over time with low quality cardstock, these being only better than the big three in Bakugan, I wish they hadn't foiled them at all. Before we get into the gameplay, I want to talk about the starter deck one more time. The starter deck is packaged as a two-player set, including a simplified version of the rules on a two-sided card, but not the full rules. I made a big deal about this in my opening of this set, as nothing appeared to be as so strong as to warp the beginner's experience when the set is played as two half decks using a full rule set. After playing it, this is very much the case. The full gameplay and cards were simple enough to not have even bothered with a simplified version. What the idea was behind this, I would love to know, as I can see no reason for it beyond purposely being obtuse and speaking down to the consumer. The gameplay is very simple. You start with a 3-card hand and all Transformers in vehicle mode. Every turn you start by drawing a card. Then you may play an action card, or equip a Transformer with an upgrade of a type they don't already have. Let's equip Bumblebee with a flamethrower. There are two exceptions to this, however. The first turn player may do neither of these actions, while the second turn player may only do one, but not both. You may also transform one of your Transformers each turn by flipping them over. From here, you must tap one of your Transformers to attack an opponent's Transformers. If all of these are untapped, you choose the target. Otherwise, you must attack a tapped Transformer. We will attack Optimus Prime with Bumblebee and Bumblebee's flamethrower. When you attack, you flip the top 2 cards of your deck, as does your opponent, revealing the top right of the cards. If the attacker reveals any orange icons, their attack is increased for each one. If the defender reveals any blue icons, their defense is increased for each one. We got 1 orange, so that brings Bumblebee up to 5. Optimus Prime gets nothing and white. White is a special icon, which allows you to flip 1 additional card. Optimus Prime still got nothing, but Optimus Prime's defense is 2. There are also effects that increase the amount you flip on attack and defense, such as Bumblebee's flamethrower here, which allows you to flip 2 more cards while attacking. Bumblebee gets a white, which allows him to flip an additional time, which got him a blue, and an additional card, which got him more blue. So he has a total of 1 orange to increase his attack. So Bumblebee has 5 attack to Optimus Prime's 2 defense. Once all cards are flipped and the equipment attack and defense modifiers are applied, if the attack of the attacker is higher than the opponent's defense, damage is dealt equal to the defense. So in this case, Optimus Prime would receive 3 damage. If all one side's Transformers are tapped, their opponent can keep attacking till all of their Transformers are tapped. Once you conclude an attack, your turn ends. At the end of a turn where all Transformers are tapped, they all untap. When actions are used and cards are flipped, they go to an unnamed zone, not the discard pile, here called the scrap pile. They are put into your discard pile at the end of the turn. When you run out of cards, you shuffle your scrap into your deck and start again. Transformers is quite clearly designed with children in mind on a mechanical side, as you cannot do much of anything when your opponent attacks bar prepare via equipment, prior, and hope for the best in flips. I know they believe kids hate response cards over at Wizards of the Coast, but it's worth noting that most every kid's card game that isn't Pokemon has always had response cards, and Pokemon can't. It would be an inaccurate representation of the video games with response cards. Transformers feels like it's missing a ton of strategic value without response cards. I know the third set is introducing secret actions, which function like traps in Yu-Gi-Oh! That discard themselves at the end of the turn whether they were triggered or not, but they are awkward in application compared to just a reaction card, an action that can only be played on your opponent's turn and in response to something. Just sitting there, closing my eyes, and thinking of Cybertron while I take it like a man does not feel good. There is nothing in theme that should forbid them making reaction type cards either. Even more so when the secret actions are triggered by attacks, damage, or defending, and the rules mandate you must attack. They have to be triggered. In conjunction with this, the game lacks depth as a whole. Over the 2 sets released in the partially revealed third set, only 2 keywords really spice up the gameplay: Brave and Stealth. Brave forces your opponent to attack it if able, while Stealth can't be an attack target while untapped. This is at least some strategic and thought-provoking value. Everything else boils down to beatdown of some description, with very minor amounts of burn and small amounts of control. Everything else ups attack, defense, the amount of cards flipped, draws cards, or plays more equips and actions. It's more to do with efficiency rather than interesting ways to win or true alternate play patterns. Transformers on a core mechanical level does flavour well. You transform the Transformers, equip them, and send them to war. Unfortunately, that's all the flavour it has. You can make a team of Autobots and Decepticons, so no forcing you to choose a side. Effects sometimes only work on one side. The flavour of the franchise, though, 2 warring factions, is completely missing for the most part. While the game does have some benefits to running cars, trucks, planes, and there are sub-factions, they don't have their own unique identities, such as exclusive keywords, stat themes, gameplay styles, etc. No one feels unique either, or has any flavour whatsoever. You'd expect things such as Bumblebee spying, Optimus rallying the troops, Ironhide decking out Transformers, in new gear, Wheeljack scrying and drawing cards, etc. But no, the game as a whole has absolutely no flavour under the surface. It feels like it's coming from someone who doesn't understand the franchise and characters at all. You could design set after set just by using the old bios and tech specs. There is also the issue of it just being chug. Classics Henkai universe and generation so far. No Unicron Trilogy, no Bayverse, no Animated, no Beast Wars, no Japanese G1, no G1.5, no G2, no Car Robots, no Aligned. This puts limits on the appeal of the sets to a subsection of the franchise. I feel like how Bandai does Dragon Ball Super, taking multiple points of the franchise each set would have better suited Transformers, as to increase the appeal of the sets to as many people as possible. I was very much hoping to be able to endorse the Transformers with an asterisk. That asterisk advising the consumer on the absolutely abysmal pull rates for Transformers. While this has been improved with Set 2, it's still far from good. Super Rares are actually made arguably worse, but I was hoping that the gameplay would counterbalance it so much that I could look past it. The game is, however, in a word, boring. As I was playing it, I got the feeling of confusion, questioning whether what was on offer was it. Usually with card games, the starter deck is a sample, made to allow the player to test the waters, but give a good impression. Looking beyond not only the asinine lack of a full rule set, but the decks on offer themselves, the game doesn't have much else to offer. Transformers lacks a great deal of strategic value. Even compared to Pokemon, it doesn't have the flavour to make up for the lack of strategy. It just feels like a handful of somethings smacking each other up each turn. The borrowed twin drive from Vanguard doesn't do anything exciting to spice things up like triggers do, and you can't really defend yourself either. The game honestly feels unfinished. Like the core mechanics were in place, but that took so long that they had to put it out without any fleshing out of anything else. I might also argue that the Pokemon Vanguard hybrid they went with was the wrong design to go with. But working inside of it, I'd argue full on reaction, status conditions, and trigger check type effects, as well as more thoughtful and flavoursome card design, would go a long way to improving the game. The game is in desperate need of a complexity bump. People like to forget how many things Pokemon has to work with, and that Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic are also children's games. Transformers doesn't really have much going on, and is very much more Donk the game than Pokemon, the prior king of Donk. I hate to say it, but outside of the brand, Transformers has very little to offer. Even the gimmicks and the way they have been done are detrimental to the game. For those saying flip cards would get damaged in the deck by being slided in and out of the sleeves, not having proper storage solutions and the lack of ease in finding sleeves means they get damaged anyway. Not to mention the three-faced cards that damage themselves. There is also the question of the uninspiring art and templates, all dark and gritty. Fine for adolescents and adults, albeit a bit tiresome, but the intended audience of children? I don't think it'd be very appealing. I can't imagine kids seeing these and wanting them. The art is a bland mess. The Transformers don't even pop. Added to that is that they are not even using current toys till set 3, and even then, not toys aimed at children. Cyberverse. To be really honest, I think they'd have a better time of it using the more colourful actual G1 Sunbow cartoon and art assets over the drabness from their mobile game and IDW. Is Transformers the worst game I've ever played? No. It's not needlessly complex, over-designed, confusing, and hard to teach to others. But it hits the other end of the spectrum. It's so brain-dead, I was left wishing it was more complex. Even for children, once the novelty wears off, I doubt this game keeps their attention. I can't recommend Transformers. I'd say pick up Pokemon or the newly released Bakugan.